Welcome to The Explainer. Ever wonder how a tiny team can outplay a corporate giant? Or how a single, perfectly timed move can flip the entire game on its head? Well, today we're diving into the timeless wisdom of Sun Tzu's to figure out how real strategic power is built, stored, and then just unleashed with incredible force. So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with a big idea, that control has nothing to do with size. Then we'll look at the two fundamental ways you can win. From there, we'll see how just a couple of simple ideas can create infinite options, how to master the art of perception, and finally, the big one, how to unleash all that stored up energy.
Okay, so first things first, let's just bust a huge myth right out of the gate. We all tend to think that managing a huge company or a big army is way more complicated than running a small team. Sun Tzu would tell us, you might want to think again.
So, picture this, a massive army of 10,000 soldiers. Now, picture a small 10-person squad. What's the actual fundamental difference in controlling them? According to Sun Tzu, when you boil it down to what really matters for command, there isn't one. The principle is exactly the same.
The secret, it turns out, isn't about trying to manage every single individual. No way. It's all about your structure and how you communicate. If you can break down your force into smaller, manageable units and you have super clear signs and signals, you can coordinate thousands just as easily as you can 10. It's the system that matters, not the scale.
Okay, so if control is all about the system, how do you actually act? When it's time to make a move, Sun Tzu says that really there are only two fundamental methods you can use in any kind of conflict or competition.
First up, you've got the direct method. This is your straightforward, head-on attack. It's the move everyone expects. Its job is to engage the enemy, to lock them down and hold their attention. It's a totally necessary move, but it's not the one that wins the day.
Because victory, that's secured with this, the indirect method. These are the surprise moves, the flanking attacks, the creative tactics that your opponent just doesn't see coming. While that direct force is keeping them busy, the indirect force comes in and delivers the knockout punch.
But here's the really cool part. These two things, they aren't just separate tools in a toolbox. They flow into each other in this constant cycle. A direct attack creates the opening for an indirect one. And then that surprise move might become the new direct engagement, which sets up the next surprise. It's this endless creative loop of possibilities.
So if you only have two basic methods, the direct and the indirect, you might think you're kind of limited, right? Absolutely not. This is where the real genius of the whole system comes into play. Let's see how just a little bit of simplicity can create infinite options. I mean, just think about it. Sun Tzu points out that in ancient Chinese music, there are really only 5 core musical notes, but when you combine them, you get more melodies than anyone could ever possibly listen to. It's the same with the 5 primary colors, or the 5 basic tastes. A handful of simple building blocks can create endless, amazing variety.
And that is exactly how it works in strategy. You don't need to know 1,000 different fancy tricks. All you need is a deep mastery of those two core methods, the direct and the indirect. Because the moment you start weaving them together, letting them flow into one another in that endless cycle we talked about, well, they give rise to more maneuvers than anyone could ever see coming. Your own creativity becomes the most powerful weapon you have.
All right, we have our building blocks. Now we move to the next level, to the battlefield of the mind. See, a brilliant strategist doesn't just manage their own team. They are actively managing what their opponent sees and believes.
You know, when you look at a really messy, chaotic battle, what do you see? Just a bunch of noise and confusion? Well, Sun Tzu says a master strategist sees an incredible opportunity. Because what looks like total disorder on the surface can actually be a sign of the highest, most perfect form of control.
It's all about putting on a show. You simulate disorder to hide your ironclad discipline. You pretend to be afraid to mask your true courage. You make yourself look weak right where you're actually the strongest. You're basically tricking your opponent into underestimating you, and that's a mistake they're going to pay for.
So how do you actually pull this off? It's kind of a 3-step dance. First, you offer some tempting bait, a small, calculated loss that makes them think they've got an easy win. This gets them moving, reacting to you. And while they're off chasing ghosts that you've created, your real force is just lying in wait, ready to spring the trap.
And all of this, every single thing we've talked about so far, the control, the tactics, the deception, it's all been about one thing, building up potential energy. And now we get to the grand finale. This is how you release it all in one single overwhelming moment.
Sun Tzu gives us this absolutely perfect metaphor.
Think of strategic energy like drawing a giant, powerful crossbow. All that planning, all that discipline, all that deception, that's the slow, steady pull, bending the bow, storing up massive amounts of potential energy. And the decision to finally act, that's just releasing the trigger. It's instantaneous and it's unstoppable.
And that's why a great strategist is so terrifying when they finally attack. It's got nothing to do with just brute force. It's about a razor-sharp decision and sudden, perfect timing. All of that stored-up energy is released in the one single moment it will have the absolute greatest impact.
Now, here's a super important point. This energy doesn't come from finding one superstar and demanding they do everything. A smart leader knows that's just going to lead to burnout. Instead, they focus on picking the right people for the right jobs, and then they find a way to harness their combined energy as if it were one single thing.
And when you do that, something amazing happens. Your force isn't just a group of people anymore. It transforms. It becomes like a force of nature. It gets its own momentum, like heavy logs or stones rolling down a steep hill, just picking up more and more speed and power as they go. And this is the ultimate goal. To create a situation where your momentum is so massive, so overwhelming, that the final outcome is basically inevitable. The energy of your team becomes like a perfectly round boulder that you've just pushed off the top of a mountain. A tiny little push at the beginning results in an unstoppable, crushing force at the end. That is strategic momentum.
So, as we wrap this up, just remember, these ideas about control, deception, and momentum, they're not just for ancient generals. They apply to your business, your career, your personal goals. So the final question is really for you. Where in your own life have you been building up all this potential energy? And when is the perfect moment to finally release that trigger? Thanks for watching.